Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Chapalang Film Podcast. My name is Peng. We also have film director and co-host Jonathan Choo. Today we're going to talk about the films we've seen at the recent Singapore International Film Festival. So as usual, we have another guest with us. Last year we had Brandon, and this year we have Ivan Tan. He's a filmmaker and film educator from Singapore. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for
Hi,
having
Evan. Hello.
Yeah, I think maybe for our audience who might not know who you are, can you just intro yourself beyond what I just described you just now?
I'm primarily a writer-director. I've made several shorts. Next year, I'll be shooting my new short. And then along the way, I'm developing my feature film, which I don't know when it will be shot. But in a nutshell, that's me. I teach screenwriting and sometimes directing at LaSalle. I also teach at Objectives. I conduct a screenwriting workshop about 2 to 3 times a year. So yeah, that's who I am.
And fun fact is both you and John went to the same film school in the UK.
Yes, we did. And
We
that's
did.
where we first met as well, in a train on the way to the school.
Legit? What?
Like 8 years ago. Yeah, it's like a scene from a movie. I was there for my interview, and then I was like, that's the other guy who's there, right? And then I just struck up a conversation with him there.
And I had never met John then.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
And
This is like the film version of Before Midnight. How two film lovers came to meet.
calling me, like identifying me in public. Because in London, very few people know who I am.
Yeah.
So very shocked to hear someone call my name. Yeah, but that's
strangers on the train. Yeah.
Before we get into the SG films, how did studying at NFTS shape your taste and your appreciation of film?
I would say that one of the biggest things for me is that before NFTS, I didn't believe that films need stories. Yeah. I think when I started out, I had a more experimental kind of approach. And I think looking back, I was simply very drawn by the medium. Yeah, and I think before NFTS and also because I didn't really I didn't have like a formal film education. So a lot of like my formative experiences with learning how to make films was really about resisting what people or this invisible institution was telling me, like a film needs stories, story has 3-act structure, you need a main character and an antagonist, and there must be obstacles. Yeah, things like that. I wasn't into those things, yeah. And looking back, I think that maybe the people who said them to me, they didn't really believe it themselves, yeah. Because when I went to London for film school, and the NFTS is a very storytelling forward kind of film school. And of course, they embrace all kinds of styles, but it was there that I really learned that and grew to appreciate stories, because I had never heard of people talk about stories so simply and so convincingly, yeah, about how to think about stories. So I would say that is the main thing I got from my time in NFT.
So you said before NFTS, you didn't believe that stories needed to have like protagonists and antagonists and almost like a hero's journey kind of character arc. So is that something that you believe in now?
Now I think I will be very reluctant to not have like a protagonist. But things like hero's journey, the 5-step, 12-step, I read all of those things and I really like to read these things. But I always find like they are not very useful when I'm actually trying to write. They are not useful to me, yeah. Even though maybe at a later stage, maybe at the editing much later, when you're editing draft. And when I say later, I mean like 8, 9, 10 drafts in. Maybe I may use these things to kind of examine my story, especially if there's a problem. Yeah. So, and I still believe that films don't require stories. Yeah. I think that's something that I still believe in, but I think it takes someone with a lot of skill. Yeah, it's not easy
So,
to pull off a film that doesn't rely on the story.
right. I mean, this is a very interesting topic
Mm,
because a lot of the Southeast Asian films,
mm,
it's not that they lack story. I think it's
mm,
just that there is no what you might call either an emotional arc or a character
mm,
arc. I feel like almost by definition, if you have a character and
mm,
you make the character do things, there is going to be some kind of story. It's just
mm,
whether this story is a dramatic story or is a boring story.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
And I I I I love it that you talk about this right at the start because some of the films that we're going to discuss later, I think
mm,
fall into what
mm,
you or even I might describe as not that there is no story, but the story arc is so mild and maybe there isn't any kind of like dramatic structure that
mm,
sometimes you wonder like what's the point of the film and
mm,
what the film is trying to say.
mm.
I think maybe before we dive into the first film that we're going to talk, maybe Ivan, you could bring us through your relationship to the festival as a film goer over the past few years. How has that experience been? Has it evolved in any way over the past few years?
I mean, I first started going to SGIFF when I was in university, and that was when I was trying to watch as many films as possible because I wanted to be a filmmaker. And back then, I cannot remember which edition it was, but I remember vividly that I saw Anucha's Last Life in the Universe. No, sorry, not Last Life in the Universe.
Mundane History.
Mundane History, I'm so sorry. Yeah. And that experience blew my mind. Yeah. And back then I was really like a very big fan of Furniture, the band that played the final song. But I was just like, my gosh, like I didn't know you could do that, in a film. Like basically play the whole, you know, I can't remember how long is the song. It's like 12 or 15 minutes song, and then we just have like this sequence of the universe. I was just so blown, yeah. And back then, I remember it was also like I was very interested in Thai cinema, and I wanted to actually go there to do my internship. Yeah, because I thought that at that time they were like the punk, rockers of cinema. Yeah, and they were doing like very interesting things. I don't really understand most of what they were doing, but I was very drawn to it.
Right.
So yeah, so I remember that festival. And if I'm not wrong, I think Philip was like kind of like, I'm not even sure if he was there. And then I think the festival came to a pause. So
Philip as in Philip Chia. Lah.
yeah, Philip
Right,
Chia.
right.
So I'm not aware of those things lah at that time. Then after that I discovered Busan Film Festival.
Mm.
And that kind of took over my life because back then there was no projector, there's no, I think Shaw or Cathay were occasionally screening films there were like art house, but otherwise there's no way to watch those films. And then I discovered Busan a film festival, and I was like, oh my gosh, like if I just save money for 1 year and go to this trip, I pretty much gao dim, whole years, right? It's like I always regard it as my cinematic update. I like update my hard drive because I get to know what the Asian filmmakers are doing, and I also get to know what has been very, I guess, well regarded in other festivals. So I think in Busan I was just I would go every year and watch 4 films a day, and that's pretty much what I did lah. Yeah. Then after that, I guess I because there was Busan, so I unfortunately, like even when there was SGIF, like I would have seen all the films, yeah. Short of the shorts, So I had seen all the films, so there was not much of a motivation to go back to watch films in the festival. And I guess it was a blur, but I guess the next thing that I think my relationship with the festival would be the Southeast Asian Film Lab. Yeah, the C Lab. Yeah, so I participated 2 years ago. It's really sad that this year they don't seem to
Yeah.
have put it on hiatus. So yeah, so I took part in that, and it was nice. And oh yes, I remember before that my short film,
Yeah.
a bit quit was programmed. Yeah,
Yeah. We had shorts program in the same year. Yours in competition and mine in SG Panorama.
yeah, and that's actually, it's a funny story because actually I didn't submit it. Yeah, it's actually Wei Liang, director of Mongrel, that
Yeah.
told the programmer about it, and that's kind of like, and then one thing led to another. So that's where I am now. And this year, I guess I'm back at the festival. I mean, just to watch films. Yeah, and I'm happy because I think the program is really strong. I watched a lot of films that I wanted to watch, very badly. So yeah, I guess that's why I'm here.
So you stopped going to Busan, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I went, I think, last year or 2 years ago. Yeah, but Busan has kind of changed a bit for me. Yeah, it has become really massively successful, and now I think it's a bit too crowded for me, for my taste. And the film pass is getting very expensive. Yeah, when I first went there, the film pass was like 20 USD.
Right.
Now
Holy
it's
shit.
very expensive. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, really, like for about slightly over 1,000 Sing, I could go there for like a week. Yeah. And I thought that was very worth it lah. And I would
Yeah,
watch
it's worth it. Yeah.
almost 30 films, So I thought it was really worth it. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was me lah.
All right, now let's talk about the opening film, Stranger
Yes.
Eyes,
I didn't watch it.
directed by none other than Yeo Siu-hua. It was obviously in the main competition of Venice Film Festival. So, John, do you want to roughly describe what you might call the film's story?
Okay. Let me give a try. Yeo Siu-hua's Stranger Eyes, I would say it's a story where its inciting incident is being kicked off when a moderately young couple that is not based in Singapore, living in Singapore, right? Their child kind of went missing, and after that, their life is being kind of hit by a series of cryptic incidents, right? Being sparked off by mysterious surveillance footage of them being sent to their doorstep in the form of DVD copies. And through their own personal investigation and also the police sort of inept help in the progress, they come to kind of sum up that the prime suspect might be their next door neighbor, right? So, but then as the story goes on, turns out that there's more than meets the eye, right? To a point where, the potential crime might not even be the point of the story, right? Where the story is really about, do some people actually deserve to be parents? And how do we actually define the idea of good parenting? So I think
Well,
that's what really the film is about. It is a very I think another very interesting entry in the body of work of Yeo Siu-hua, coming off his breakout hit Land Imagine a couple of years ago. So yeah, we had the opportunity to watch this on the second screening after the opening night film. I think it was a full house as well. Yeah, and Ivan, you haven't seen this film, right? Have you seen this?
No, I got the timing wrong. Unfortunately, I actually bought this sian, yeah.
Yeah. So I think one interesting thing about this this very screening is that Peng and I both had this thing called the Cinephile Pass, where for a minimum donation of $50 we can watch as many films as we can. But then which also means that for sold out films we have to stand in the rush queue just to stand by if we can actually get in. So I think that was that being the first film, we kind of freaked out because we saw sold out already, and then I think a programmer told me that I think if it's sold out, you feel that it's going to be sold out, you should get a ticket. So we went to the Telegram space and we just purchase tickets right
Oh.
away. But then turned out, another friend of us, Ben Yap, who is a host of the Deep Cut Pod, also another excellent film podcast. He just winged it and he got in. Yeah, being one of the first few in the rush queue. Yeah, so after that we just decide to turn up for the queues as early as we can to get into the screenings. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing.
And the coincidence is I bought a ticket from Ivan. I can't remember for which film.
This one, you bought it from him.
This one, right?
yeah.
You bought one ticket.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And after we managed to get in, I'm like, maybe don't need to buy the other sort of screenings.
Yeah. Very Sepeng, you want to give some of your thoughts on the film?
Yeah, actually, I want to ask you for your thoughts on the film. I mean, okay, I think the obvious, Ivan is enjoying himself. I think the obvious reference is Michael Haneke's Hidden or Cachet,
Yeah.
as well as Hitchcock's
Rear Window.
what's that? Yeah, I think we were discussing Chris films in relation to especially Haneke, right? Because of the opening shot. And we commented that I think, although it seems similar in the fact that both films deal with, the inciting incident is similar, and both films on the surface deal with surveillance or the experience of being watched. But what the film, in fact, is trying to tackle, the themes, right, is very different. And I feel like Stranger Eyes, the theme that it tries to tackle, maybe in fact closer to Hitchcock's film. And what Hitchcock film, behind the veneer of this like thriller, Hitchcock is really trying to comment on the relation between man and woman and the state of marriage. That's why in Rear Window, when the main character, what's the guy's name? Patrick Stewart? Is it Patrick Stewart or James Stewart, right?
James Stewart, yeah.
When James Stewart's character voyeuristically looks at his next door neighbors, there are a bunch of them, right? If you notice, each of the little window features a different kind of like male-female relationship. Like there is the married couple that's quarreling, then there's like the young lady who is alone and she's like happily dancing, and I think her boyfriend comes in at one point and they have some kind of quarrel. Yeah, so I think Hitchcock films in general deal with this, you could call it tension, right, between man and female relationship. But in different manifestation, like in Psycho is the male son and the female mother. Yeah, so for me, Chris films didn't really provide much commentary on surveillance besides showing obviously the images of this omnipresent camera.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel, John.
I actually agree with that. I feel like for me the film is like what I said at the start. It's really about parenting and
Yeah.
if some people deserve to be parents. And I think it kind of found that it kind of touched on that theme quite clearly somewhere in the midpoint of the film, especially when the perspective kind of shift towards Lee Kang-sheng's point of view, right? Where we follow his story. I felt that it kind of should have held on to that theme a little bit more, but because the narrative frame of device is through surveillance, once in a while they kind of have to go back to the camera, the omniscient camera, and even we even see a lot of so-called set pieces that is built around the camera as well. And sometimes, in my opinion, to not so strong effect. It kind of dwindles a little bit going into the third act, when things are supposed to kind of go towards this climatic point. I think things kind of get a little bit messy there, especially when the couple's journey is getting closer to Lee Kang-sheng, the character who they suspect has taken their daughter away. Yeah, the conflict kind of leads up to a moment of tension that I think kind of went unresolved a little bit as well. There's a moment of violence. I think we are going to go into spoiler territory inevitably when we talk about this film.
Yeah. I think we have to spoil it.
We have
because
to. Yeah.
I was about to ask you to roughly describe how the
Okay.
film is, how the narrative is structured, because there is
Sure.
the what you might call the first act is the
Yeah.
couple discovering that they're being watched, and
Yep.
they
Yeah.
suspect it's this security guard that might be
Yeah.
watching them, right?
Not a security guard. Supermarket manager. Yeah.
Supermarket manager, yeah.
Correct. So
Yeah.
this couple, right? The husband is a good for nothing guy who works at a ice skating rink. In this cinematic world that Chris has created, right? The ice skating rink in Kallang and Snow City, I think is sort of like together as one, right? Yeah. And the wife is like a live streamer DJ. And so they are kind of a hip couple. They stay in a flat together with their mom, who I think is a passe dancer, right? And their child went missing, and they start receiving all these DVDs of footage being shot by some guy. And it's very obvious that is by the guy that is living directly opposite them from the opposite block, who can see what they are doing. Why do they not pull the blinds down? I have no idea. But they seem to like to leave the lights on and show their private life in display at all times. So they start receiving all this creepy footage. They go to the cops. Cops is like, you know what? All we can do is just put CCTV there, right? We can't really do anything. Played majestically by the one and only Pete Teo from Malaysia. You see him in the Barbarian Invasions by Tan Chun Wei as well. He has he's not a good actor per se, but he always comes out with the most interesting acting choices, right? And always quite fascinating to watch. And then as they receive more videos, they kind of get much more because the videos reveal to the couple what they don't know about each other. Or it's like, I don't really know about you. You don't really know about me, right? And then it changes perspective to the person who's taking the video. And that is Lee Kang-shen's point of view. He's staying with his mother opposite, and the mom is an alcoholic, and he works as a manager in a supermarket with Gen Z employees that don't really give a hoot about his authority. Quite a sad person. Yeah. And then we kind of see his point of view about how he comes to this, how he kind of come across this couple. He actually saw the child being left alone on the, what do you call that, the trolley one day. And I think that kind of struck him about how, these parents might not be the best parents. And then he also come across the streaming DJ live stream as well. And he's just always on the live stream. And then somehow he starts stalking her, and she also allows him to stalk. They actually have a relationship, right? They get close together. Yeah. And that's pretty much how the second act is. It kind of leads up to this set piece where the girl actually comes to the supermarket where the shopping hours are over, and Lee Kang-shen plays a very old school Chinese music track and just starts looking at her through the CCTV camera. The last act kind of goes in a different direction. It's realized that Lee Kang-shen wasn't the one who took away the baby, right? The baby was actually taken away by someone who just misses her kid, and the kid happens to look like the baby, right? Lee Kang-shen's arc has something to do with a daughter that is estranged with her. And the daughter is working in Snow City / the ice skating rink. And he has been there all the while, kind of spying on her as well. And the main protagonist of the film kind of was able to put the pieces of the puzzle together, right, by actually going to his house and find the DVD as well. Because it's like, this guy is spying on me, right? I have to show the proof, right? So I'm going into his house to see that he filmed all these things. And he found out, yeah, he did indeed film on me. Oh, but I get it. He is filming his daughter, right? There is this yearning to be a parent as well. Yeah. So you can see that at the end of the day, this film is really about parent-child relationships, right? Yeah, and that's pretty much the whole film. At the end of the journey, you see the couple kind of looking at each other, thinking whether after this whole ordeal, can they still lead a life together? Yeah. So that's pretty much the whole story of Stranger Eyes. Yeah.
When I was hearing you describe all that, maybe the film just clicked for me, in a sense that, because you were describing the relationship between the wife / like Twitch live streamer DJ.
Yep.
and also Lee Kang-shen's character, who is both watching her on her live stream and also stalking her husband and also her. As you were describing all that, suddenly it kind of makes sense to me, where I think him watching her live stream is, I think she becomes like a daughter surrogate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
When I was watching the film, this thought didn't come across me.
Yeah.
I was thinking
same.
maybe he has some sexual attraction to the girl.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And the girl also enjoys being watched because, and I'm speculating, right? Because ever since their child disappeared, she doesn't feel seen by her husband. Like her husband just, obviously, he's rightly worried about the missing child, right? And maybe the wife feels a lack of attention. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is just pure speculation on my part. Yeah.
And I think there's a reason for that, because these were thoughts that came to me when I pondered upon the film when I was at home as well. I think while watching, these themes didn't really kind of present itself as powerfully as it could, right? But the elements were there, right? It's only when we kind of go back and ruminate upon it, then we realize I understand the character a little bit more. So I do wonder, is it some of the presentation of the story that could have been a little bit tighter and in kind of delineating this psychological trajectory of the characters?
Actually, I have a theory, right? Why what you just said about the films not being clear. Because I feel like there might be a conflation of two different themes. And I feel like this is what Chris tends to do with his films, even with A Land Imagined, where he has a few like concepts or ideas, themes that he wants to explore, and they seem to be related, but they're not really related. And I give an example, right? So with this film, I feel like there is a big difference between being watched and enjoying others watching you and watching others. There's a difference between that and surveillance. I think those are two different things.
Yeah.
And the surveillance that the film is trying to explore, right, where is the state apparatus surveillance. That is very different from this personal, individual level of watching others and being watched.
Yeah.
And I feel like because there is this conflation of these two ideas, like as if both of them are similar, that's why the film feels a bit, at times, confusing to me. Like I'm not sure exactly what the film is trying to say. And I think this is something similar in A Land Imagined, right? Which is there is the idea of the land of Singapore as being imagined, quote unquote imagined, because we reclaimed the land. Like it originally didn't exist, but we made it exist. So there's this imagination.
Right. Yeah.
And then there is also, I remember, right, like using the idea of the immigrant's dream to come to Singapore and conflating this dream as a part of the migrant's imagination with us in Singapore reclaiming the land and saying this Singapore is a kind of fiction in a way. So like I feel like Chris likes to do this kind of like conceptual jazz improvisation where he mixes ideas and themes. And
I do have to support him on this, because as a filmmaker, right, when you have this kind of ideas, right, it's like, this is good, man. And even though you know that it could potentially be two very different things, you are just like, conceptually, this is striking a gold mine. So yeah, I'm just going to put these two things together.
And I mean, I think it is good in the sense that the films that he comes out with is just so cinematically interesting, right? Like I think A Land Imagined was very well made, and it has some really great like cinematic moments. But I think when you, in a way, what it wants to say isn't clear. It's okay. The films or the filmmaker is okay with the film as a text being somewhat incoherent.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like, for me, the first half of the film actually worked wonderfully for me. I felt like, even though I felt like in the second half it kind of shift towards a point of view.
Yeah.
I personally do not quite like films where it kind of just shift to another character's point of view. But I get it, because there's these two opposing sides. It's still kind of what I didn't like and what really didn't quite work for me. But I still was able to kind of watch it with a suspense of a belief after a while, is the fact that the characters were Taiwanese, right? The three characters were Taiwanese. The Kang-Shen character is Taiwanese, but they are in Singapore as well. And the Mandarin is very, very obviously Taiwanese as well. And then the other characters that are floating behind, they speak like Singaporean, they speak like Singlish or Singaporean kind of Mandarin. Even Li Kang-Shen's mom speaks like a Singaporean in Hokkien. So, for me, it's like, you got to explain, are they like immigrants here, from Taiwan? And
John, if you remember, we had this conversation when the film's trailer first came out. And I remember saying to you, honestly, I didn't really mind it. And why is because in my own personal life, when I go to work and walk about in town, I hear a lot of China accents mixed up with obviously Singaporean accent. Both like Singaporean English accent and Singaporean Mandarin accent. And for me, right, that is my reality of Singapore. Because in like 313 Somerset, there are a lot of new shops opened by Chinese people, right? And the shops obviously sell like Chinese goods. You have and you have like one mango dessert store that's from Taiwan. And you have a few stalls selling like China products. And there are a lot of, and on the first floor of, I think, Orchard Gateway is like this Chinese operated mala tang. So for me, right, there is a lot of Chinese people in Somerset. And
Sure.
I hear that a lot. And I feel like this is our, at least this is my reality of Singapore. So I didn't really mind it so much.
Sure. Okay, it's okay if the main family of three speak Taiwanese. But the neighbor that spies on you also speak in Taiwan accented Chinese. I think maybe one can be Singaporean. Yeah. But that's just my point. It's just too strange really. Yeah. So
quality of
I guess they were going for the actors.
Yeah. But also, did you feel that the way Singapore has been framed in this film feels like there isn't a Singapore identifier, right? It's like a anonymous Asian city.
No, but actually, weirdly enough, right? Other than the fact that the way they speak is obviously different from us, right? I do feel, and I think Yu Hua is quite good at, with the help of Hideo Urata, right? They frame Singapore quite well. You are able to feel a sense of Singapore as a Singaporean watching, except for the Snow City part. Yeah. But other than that, especially in the malls, near the street soccer court and the industrial areas, I do feel quite strongly Singaporean in those scenes. That's for me watching the film. Which is why it's quite you get very weird sensations when you're watching the film. Sometimes you get them speaking in obviously non-Singaporean but the feeling and the texture of the places they are around are very, very Singaporean.
Right. I feel the complete opposite of you. And I was just thinking, what is the most Singaporean thing in the film is the HDB flats, right? It's the space.
Yeah.
Not in the malls, right? Like the mall, I feel like is very anonymous. Like it's similar to like a mall in Bangkok, for example.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I know for a fact like CapitaLand builds malls in like Vietnam and Bangkok, and the interior design is quite similar.
Yep.
But what is most Singaporean in the film is the HDB. But even that kind of space, if you go to some areas in Malaysia or even in Bangkok, there are buildings that look architecturally somewhat like that, in the sense that they're also both facing each other, especially those like more rundown public housing areas.
Yeah. But I tell you, which is the element in the film that make me feel like what you said about how this feels like an anonymous Asian city. It's the scenes in the police station where if you look at the logo, it really does feel like like anonymous Asian city police station.
Yeah.
the CID,
the officer, yeah.
that the very Channel 8 CID subordinate that just come in, sir, they are here. Yeah, so those parts do make me feel like it's a bit anonymous.
On the topic of surveillance, right? I think the next film that we should talk about is Happyend by Japanese director Soran Yu. And Ivan, have you seen that film?
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you could do a survey to the audience and talk about what the story is for those who haven't seen it.
Happyend is a story about 4 friends. I can't remember what grade they are. Is it high school?
Yeah, I think it's high school.
They're high schoolers. And they are like really close knitted. And at the start of the film they try to break into a rave, techno rave. And then after that they sneak back to their school, and then I think the next day mysteriously the principal, who has this really swanky car, I don't know what's the model, cause like a yellow like a sports car.
Yeah.
It's like placed in a not
Like a
inverted,
vertical.
you see in the trailer, yeah, and the principal is obviously very, very annoyed, and no one wants to admit who did it, and they can't figure out. So on that pretext, the principal decides to install this surveillance cameras, which is pretty high tech stuff, yeah. And the surveillance cameras is a bit like Black Mirror, yeah. Like it's like hyper intelligent. You can see what you do, and then you get demerit points from it. And I think related to this, the background of this world is also that earthquakes seem very frequent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I think the government uses the pretext of frequent earthquakes to actually push out policies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think the filmmaker quite clearly feels is more about power and control than anything else. Yeah. So then then the plot develops from there and kind of narrows down to the 2 friends. Our main character, Carl, I think his name's Carl.
Yeah, Carl.
Other friend, and because his other friend is slowly shown to not quite represent the same politics as the rest.
Yeah.
And then I think the film, resolves itself. So
Yeah.
in a nutshell, that's the
Yeah.
plot.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this film. It's a political coming of age film. I think the main thing that it tries to talk about is political apathy and being political and socially conscious, and the tension between these two. And the backdrop is this encroaching school surveillance, which is essentially a commentary on state surveillance. And I think the very obvious real world, not just Black Mirror sci-fi, right, but the obvious real world reference is to like a country like China. China actually does have such surveillance implementation in place, and the face scanning technology it's basically using AI, and they have the database of all the citizens' records, and using computer vision, the camera can scan your face and identify who you are, what you're doing, and there is a social credit score, and all of that also is reflected in Neo Sora's film. Yeah, and against this, what you might call like totalitarian landscape, you have this bunch of friends who are trying to figure out what they want to be and who they want to become after graduation, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think 2 or 3 of them are very into music, electronic music.
Yeah.
And there's that one character, Carl, right? He is the one that, thanks to this female crush, became more and more politically conscious. Yeah, and I mean, for you, Ivan, like, why did you like the film? I assume you like the film, and why did you like it?
I like the film. The first thing that I really like is the score. From the first shot, I love the first shot. It's a beautiful way to start the film. And I love the score. It's epic yet intimate. It didn't end there, the score. It like he was very willing to use music. Yeah. Whereas I feel like, the typical sort of I wouldn't like for most so-called art house films,
Yeah.
I think filmmakers, especially up and coming filmmakers, or even filmmakers doing their first features, most of them avoid
Mm.
music entirely, and this is a guy who like completely embraced it.
Mm.
I really like it was very refreshing for me, because I remember after that really nice, opening score, which he said, I think an audience member pointed out, City of Sadness as a key reference, and he was very happy to hear that. So so after that first score, there was this like piano piece, like very willing, and everything worked, for me. So I really enjoyed that and found it refreshing. Yeah. The other thing I really enjoyed was, I thought the set pieces were amazing. Yeah. How like I love the rave.
Mm.
Though someone told me that actually that DJ doesn't play that kind of music. His music is way more hardcore. And I love that very amazing scene in the morning when the principal and everyone discovers that the car has been
Yeah.
someone did a very serious prank. So I like that a lot. I thought that's the image that's seared in my head. And I like that it's like futuristic and sci-fi and dystopia without drawing too much attention to itself. There was this kind of promise, and the production values, the cinematography, the filmmaking really lived up to it. Like I don't know what's the budget, but it was really all the production value was on the screen. So I thought that was really well done for like his. I know this is his second film, but it's his like first feature.
Mm.
That was very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remembered the composer's name. Like it's Ouyang Rusli, right? Like, do you know his work?
No, but apparently, like the
He
composer
just
is
recently
also
did a 8 film.
exactly.
Oh, sick.
Yeah,
Problemista.
another,
Yeah, this film.
yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, so I didn't know it until like the film ended, and then obviously I had to go and check out the score, and I've
Yeah.
just been looping it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents worth. And I really enjoyed like every time the four friends were together, those were just really nice scenes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just full of such nice youthful energy. Although sometimes I did think, is the casting a bit old, right? But it
Yeah.
never kind of like interfered much. Like it's just like some random thoughts here and there.
Yeah.
But every time the four of them came together, especially when they are up to no good, it's just really nice to watch. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's another like something to comment on, like because not everyone can do that. And actually, he said later on in the Q&A that actually those scenes were like his favorite to direct as well. And you kind of like can link like what you see on the screen, and that the director simply really enjoyed doing that. We can feel it, as an audience.
Yeah, I think for me, what I appreciated was this coming together of there is the lyricism of a film like 400 Blows, where it's just young people having fun, and the way they do it is so relaxed, right? It doesn't feel like you're watching something constructed. And also the other force is there is this political anger that Neo Sora is bringing to the film. Almost something like not as angry as someone like Nagisa Oshima, but there is still this underlying anger, and I think he struck this balance where there is this tenderness and this lyricism, and there is this fire of politics, but without being so overbearing. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think when you watch, I don't know why, but I keep thinking of Oshima, right? But when you watch Oshima's film, you appreciate it for the fire. Maybe the nuance is lacking a bit in Oshima's film, but you love how like the characters are so brash. But in this film, it's more real, and being political but without being preachy. I think that's what this film succeeded in. Yeah.
I really like this film as well. I think it's probably my favorite film of the festival. I agree with all the points that you guys make. I thought that it's interesting you talk about Oshima. What was really skillfully done here in terms of tone is, when you have things like, dystopia,
Totalitarianism.
totalitarian, right? It's always very hard to. Okay, you always either have the very bleak film, or you have
Yeah.
something that is very absurdly satire, right?
Hmm.
But he's able to just present this almost Greta Gerwig-ish
Yeah.
camaraderie between friends, right? With genuine
Yeah.
warmth.
Yeah.
It makes you kind of just overlook not say overlook. It doesn't put the coldness and the bleakness in the forefront. The
Hmm.
warmth is always
Yeah.
the key central thing that is fronting the film, and I think it helps that the score does bring that warmth out as well. The music
Yeah.
club does bring that out as well, and what you get is a very realistic depiction of the so-called near future, right? It is what is so intelligently done. Only one of the times that we get the idea that this is set in 1942 is the calendar that is like in the background of the music club, and sometimes, of course, you have that big screen that scans them, but it doesn't falls into that whole like Minority Report, the temptation to do that kind of thing, holograms that pop out and or like people who have to scan your head with like Men in Black devices. It just uses clouds and then this like red words that pops up on the building.
Yeah. I think
And-
that aspect of the film is the most quote unquote sci-fi part of the film.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very organic. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think for a debut feature, right, there's very strong command of staging, and I think he is very good at his storytelling. It's very good at identifying visual repetition and patterns as well, right?
In what way? Like, for example?
Like, for example, the first time they go home and then they take the bridge, and then it's like, oh, I have to go left, you have to go right. And hey, don't come to my house, that kind of thing. And then in the end, you have the same exact shot, but so much has changed between these characters, especially that two guys. It's the same exact shot, and he, it ends with him squeezing the nipple of the other guy, right? In Jolly, and then it freeze frames there, and you are like, wow, this is so powerful, and it's such a simple thing, right? Just framing the same shot. But these are the kind of things that sometimes sometimes filmmakers tend to overlook. Yeah.
It's very stylish. Now that you talk about the freeze frame, I remember thinking at the start of the film was like, oh, this is really stylish, because he did the same thing at the start when they were running back.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, this is a really cool filmmaker.
Yeah, man.
It's just, it takes you long, it sweeps you.
Did you guys recall any particular film when you saw that freeze frame? There's a very famous French film that ended with a freeze frame.
But I was thinking of Plan 75 now that we are talking about it. Not when I was watching it, but as you guys were talking, I was thinking about Plan 75. Again, it's like talking about this like hypothetical future, right? But it seems so contemporary at the same time.
I think because the reason why both these directors do that is really to highlight the fact that this reality that I'm depicting in these films is coming soon.
Yep.
Which it is, right? Because Japan is a rapidly growing and dying population. And I mean, not just Japan, right? Like, I think globally, world population is declining. I think right now we have the opposite problem, right? Because for very long, people were concerned about overpopulation, and now world population is actually dropping. And I think the concerns depicted in Plan 75 is very real. The same thing for Sora's film. Yeah. I think the more I think about it, right, what I carried away from the film, right, is really the three-way relationship between Carl and his political maturing, and his little crush with the girl. I love the actress so much.
Yeah.
The way she plays the girl is like this awkward little girl, and also trying to find herself in the world.
A little bit arrogant. Yeah.
A little bit arrogant, but But the actress that Neo casted, her character is written as a bit arrogant, but the actress' face doesn't portray arrogance. So there is this weird, tension between the character and the actress, and also the friend who, understandably, not everyone cares about politics at the age, right?
Yep.
Sometimes you just want to make your music and chill
Correct.
and smoke some whatever they smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, I remember when I was in poly was my political maturing, and I can totally relate to Carl, right? Like my classmates, like, why don't they care about the oppression in Myanmar, all that nonsense, How come these people just care about graduating, getting good grades, finding a job after that? I can totally relate to the main protagonist.
I think the film actually reminds me of two Japanese films. One is Nobuhiko Obayashi, The Drifting Classroom. The same director that directed Houseu, the very
Legend.
nuts.
Yeah.
He did this film called A Drifting Classroom, which is also set in this international school, right? Where you have this diverse crowd, of people from different countries and all that, and the diversity of students in Soranio's film is actually quite, like, you really can believe it, right? Because it's you really believe in 20 years we'll have classrooms that are more ethnically diverse than you can expect. The other film that it reminded me of is Shinji Somai's Typhoon Club, which is a film about a group of young kids that they are caught up in a school during a storm. Somehow the premise of that is it reminds me of Ranyo's Happyend as well.
I've never seen that film. Do you think Sunji Iwai's Lily Chou-Chou, does it make you recall that film?
Not that much, actually. Yeah. That film too bleak.
True.
This one, everyone's so nice to each other. Right? The whole school, there's not a single bullying case. Everyone just like, they just want what's good for society.
Yeah. Wow, when I watched Lily Chou-Chou the first time, right? Wow, I scared to go to Japan. I heaved a sigh of relief, like glad that I wasn't born in Japan and grew up in that environment after I finished Lily Chou-Chou. Yeah. Okay, Ivan, you got anything to conclude? If not, we can move on.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
All right, next film. Ivan, I think you should start with this, Mongrel, because just now you mentioned Wei Liang, who is the director of Mongrel, recommended your short to SGIFF. So, you want to kick us off?
Mongrel is about his main character. I can't pronounce his name right. O-O-M, is it? Character is a Thai national, and he's working as a caretaker in the mountainous regions of Taiwan. That's what I gather. He's a very, very good caretaker and almost like Christ-like figure. And in particular, he is very close to this mother and son who he cares for. The son I think he has cerebral palsy, if I'm wrong, but essentially he's severely disabled. And the mother is also quite old already, so the main character looks after them. So in this backdrop, he's, what we also understand is that he's actually kind of like, I'm not sure if illegal immigrant is the right word to use, but he's like undocumented.
Undocumented immigrant.
Undocumented, and he's
without
not
work visas.
and he's not the only one, because this is kind of like a syndicate that is running this caretaking service among other Thai undocumented immigrants. So I don't want to spoil the film in case people haven't seen it, but something happens to one of them, and is put into a situation that he doesn't want to be in. And then more things happen, but one of the main things is that is asked to do something to help the mother do something. Which he eventually does at the end.
I think you should say what the mother does. No, because I think we should discuss that, because one of my big issues with the film is with the action.
So spoilers ahead. Basically, the mother asks him to help to euthanize the son, essentially help kill the son. Yeah, and he refuses initially, yeah, when she asks him, but at the end of the film, yeah, he does it. He pulls the trigger. He kills the son. Or at least it's implied.
It's very obvious he did. I think it's more than implied. So what are your thoughts on the film?
It's a film that, I mean, I can't say I love the film. It's a very tough film, yeah. And the filmmakers themselves also found it quite I think in the self-conscious, they were like, oh, we hope you enjoy the film, but at the same time, I don't think it's a film you will enjoy. Yeah, from the very first shot, which I think a lot of people write about and talk about. Yeah, it's quite clear that the filmmaker is going for a certain direction. Yeah.
Can I ask you to elaborate on that?
Meaning?
Why is it a tough film to watch? And can you relate that to the direction that you think the filmmakers took this film in?
To be very honest, I didn't feel so much that the film was tough to watch. A lot of people, people in the reviews, I was very curious about film because, Wei Liang is a filmmaker, whom I know, and he's actually just 1 year above me in school. We are both from NTU. So we studied comms. And actually it was on his film set that his film set was the first film set that I ever been to. Yeah. Not Mongrel. Nice. Yeah. And actually that was when filmmaking I remember I was on his set and I thought to myself that this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen people do. Not that his film was ridiculous, but I remember he was shooting a short reverse, a conversation between two soldiers.
When the Cold Wind Blows, right? That's the film.
I think so. I can't remember the title, but basically I was a stills photographer on his set. And I was thinking to myself, so they were shooting Soldier A, right? And then after that, they were talking. Then after that, I was thinking to myself, don't tell me they're going to move the camera opposite and shoot Soldier B all over again. And that's true enough what they did. It's my first time, right, seeing people make films. And I thought to myself, that's so stupid, that's a stupid thing. But I like it. I like stupidity, the folly of it all. I was very drawn to it. And that's what I think Wei Liang kind of, if he had he and I talk a lot, at different stages of our filmmaking journey. But that's probably the one thing that he gifted me, I don't think he knew it, yeah, but because I think without that, I probably wouldn't have become a filmmaker. So that is a real, that moment or that situation, however absurd it sounds, it really was, it set me on a path, yeah. Not that I decided to be a filmmaker, but it planted a seed, It's so stupid, but I like it. Yeah, I'm drawn to it. So, yeah. So how did I get to that? Yeah. What was I saying before?
So quick comment, right?
To watch. Yeah. So obviously I'm very curious. I'm following. It's when it premiered in Cannes, I was so nervous for it, even though I was not there. I was like, oh man, I hope people like the film and so on and so forth. And then Peter Bradshaw's review came out. It was glowing, 4 stars. I remember, and he had really really nice things to say. But even Peter Bradshaw said, oh, it's the pace, right? Will it's something that will test you. But to be very honest, when I saw it, the pace was okay for me. Yeah, I had no problems with it. Yeah. So in a way, but what was tough is I suppose the realities that Wei Liang was showing us through the character. I think those were tough to watch. Even the last scene, right, that Peng you told me to talk about. That's tough to watch, yeah. And the first so-called when his co-worker, gets first ill and you have a strong sense oh fuck, she's going to not make it. You also it's brutal yeah, in that sense, yeah. So I think that's what I mean when I say that it is a film that is, what did I say? I can't remember what I said really. Yeah. And speaking of which, it's a film that if you talk about the camera, It's a film that never moves. Yeah, it's a static shot from start to end. And that tells you something about the attitude and the character of the director already. If you talk about direction, yeah, because from that a direction is very clear. Yeah, what he wants.
What does that tell you about the director?
Uncompromising. He will not compromise for a vision that he has. Because to me, having a direction is also about what you don't do. And what is very clear in in Mongrel, if you talk about the camera, is he won't move lah. In fact, he may even have shot it on one lens. So I'm not going to change the lens. I'm not going to move my camera. Everything is going to be this way. But actually, for me, that's why I keep saying that the pace was not difficult for me, because I thought it would be like every scene was just going to be in one shot. Yeah, but no, actually, it's broken up. So I thought the language was okay for me. Yeah, like I have no difficulties, but maybe it's something I'm used to. Yeah, so I don't know.
I'm curious, right? Like, how do you think about this type of visual language? The static shot, don't move the camera, no matter what, and the use of the long take. Like this visual language, you would call it, right? And it's something that Wei Liang is known for. Like he does it repeatedly with all his shots, from, I think, with the exception of the short film that you were on set on. To Wei Liang's credit, for his past few shots, he has always been concerned about the plight of Southeast Asian immigrants in Taiwan, whether it's Thai or Filipino, if I recall correctly, or Burmese, right? I think one of his shots featured like this Burmese
worker.
Worker. Yeah. To his credit, he's been very consistent, and in a way, almost like Pedro Costa is. He has this one subject matter that he's obsessed about, and he just pursue it throughout all his films in the same visual language. But I think for you personally, like, what do you think that kind of visual language brings to a film like this, and specifically a subject matter like this?
Firstly, it's really interesting that you mentioned Pedro Costa, because when you talk about a visual language like that, for me, it comes from somewhere, So he belongs to a certain kind of tradition or a lineage, if you want to talk about it. So, when I watch it, I've seen all the shots that you mentioned, but I didn't think actually that they were so similar. Actually, like the one Anchorage. Yeah, actually that was more like one scene, one shot.
Yeah.
The camera is always very static in the two shots. So the one about the migrant worker on the rooftop, I can't remember what it's called. Then Anchorage Prohibited, I've seen that. And then I think if you compare these three films, the camera is static, but actually the language has differences. And in fact, the helper on the rooftop actually is just one take.
Yeah, and the camera moved, right? Yeah.
Move, and then there's something like a magical realist moment towards the end. Then she disappears, it's very poetic. So there are differences, even though the camera is static. But if you look at Mongrel by itself, the tradition for me is like, I think of Haneke. Yeah, I think of Amour, for instance, because caretaking, unfortunately, there's that kind of legacy and Amour has done it. And also Amour, he kills the wife at the end. So also I sense that kind of legacy. I also thought of Pedro Costa specifically in Vanya's room, because the camera, what I think Wei Liang's film shares in common with, say, in Vanya's room, is like the camera is like a witness, which is something he talked about. It's there, even the height. I believe he mentioned it in one of the Q&As, not in Singapore because I actually wasn't there, but how the height was very specific to him. And it's a camera, I suppose the camera gesture for Mongrel, to me, it's like it wants you to look, it wants you to look at what's in front of you. And that's how I feel. I think the word witness seems to be a fair description. the character of the camera.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you mentioned Hanake and Vanya's room. I think I would disagree with you on Hanake. I think, okay, let's start with Mongrel, right? You know, there was, in the first scene, right, there was, I think the second or third shot where the character, I think it was like maybe a medium or medium close. Sorry, I think it was either a close-up or a medium close, and the character moved out of frame. But the camera stuck to its angle, right? I don't know why, but at that moment, right, I felt a bit angry. I was like, what an arrogant director. I mean, I probably shouldn't say this, but I mean, genuinely, right, like, this is how I felt. Because why arrogant? It's just like, I feel like my camera and my camera's position is more important than the character that I'm portraying. So you move out of frame, I'm not gonna follow you. I'm just gonna stick to my perspective, and I will wait for you, the character, to come back into frame if you do come back. That was how I felt. Like, it was not something that I thought about. It was just like instinctively, right? I felt this surge of feeling, like, and I disagree with your comparison to Amour, because I feel like Amour is so much more like, there's so much love in Amour, even though the camera is static. But it's static, right? But it's not ideologically static. There are shots in the film where the camera will pan and follow the character to move.
Yeah, the opening really pan.
Yeah, correct. But if the character don't move, and whether she's just lying on the bed or sitting on the sofa, there is no reason for the camera to move. The camera won't move, right? And I think, so going back to Costa's film, right, I think this is where I was trying to think about, I think, if I recall correctly, right, in most of Costa's films, it's predominantly long shot. There is rarely, there are a few, but there is rarely any like shots, right? And I think the whole idea that Costa is trying to do is to do a kind of portraiture or a kind of like landscape painting, right? And especially in his early films, his use of shadow is very strong. You know, he tries to paint his image. And the difference with Costa and Mongrel for me, right, is I think Costa, I feel like, has a way more empathetic approach to his characters as compared to Mongrel. And I say this specifically with regards to the act of murder that you just described, right, where the main character, this Thai immigrant, kills the son of the mom and the son with cerebral palsy. I think for me, right, like, at that moment, right, I just feel like, first of all, right, I didn't buy the build-up to that. In Amour, right, you buy the act, because from start to end, right, the film has shown you nothing but the husband caring for the wife. Correct? Like, 95 or 99% of the film, right, it's just the man caring for the wife. And you see him struggle through that, his pain, you know, of seeing his once able-bodied wife become more or less like disabled, right? So when, at the end of Amour, the old man kills his wife, you can understand why, and you feel his pain. Even though, obviously, on a moral level, right, you might agree with him, you know. Like, it is perhaps more moral that he put his wife down than to let the wife survive, right? But in Mongrel, that is a purely immoral act, simply because the build-up wasn't justified. And I don't know, and I think the reason why I feel so strongly, right, about this act of murder is like my partner's younger brother does have cerebral palsy. And I have seen his mom, like her mom, take care of the brother. And although life is difficult, right, but it's never so difficult until the act of murder is justified. It's not to say that, you know, there is a alternate possibility, right, where if he had demonstrated that the murder was narratively justified, like had a build-up, right, then maybe, you know, you can see the logic of his action, but the film didn't portray that. Yeah, I think instead that there is this vision of, this film's vision is, you know, life is shit, there is no glimmer of hope, and I'm just gonna pound you with that. for me, right, the reason why I don't like this film is it's not because the filmmaking is bad. I think that the directing is damn good. It's just that my disagree with and what I dislike, right, is this vision of the world that the film has put on screen. Okay, that's my rant. Yeah.
I actually like the film. I quite like it. I thought it was very well made. The stillness of the film is commitment lah. Like you say, it doesn't even pan. It doesn't even tilt up or down. It just stays there. And I think it does. But you know what's the weird thing is that the film is slow, but when you look at the edits, the cuts, right, it doesn't suggest a slow film as well. Especially when it leads up to the arguably what is the set piece lah, which I enjoy very much. The heist scene where they go and get more workers. There's actually a lot of cuts there, right? And then you see all the cars kind of consecutively drive down the road. Yeah. But the stillness of the frame, for some reason, at times it does feel very, 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 very slow. I don't know, is it the length or what? But I also can't say that cutting the film
Right.
is the solution. I don't think so, because I think I have made films before where there are scenes that I just have to stretch it, because when I cut it, it just doesn't feel right as well. There are some moments, there are some moments where he's taking care of the old lady, right? Like the main point of that scene is just like putting the medicine, which if you are all about just delivering the main point there, you could just like show it in 1.5 minutes, right? But it went up to like 4 minutes, right? To stretch out that point. And I guess, what he's thought of that either quite well, or in the edit he's tried it out as well to, okay, maybe I should shorten because some people give feedback, it doesn't work, so I should keep it as long as it is. Yeah. To me, I agree with you that in the end, why does he have to murder the guy? To me, murdering the guy at the end or not, it doesn't make a difference to how much impact this character has already made in my life, right? Because of everything that he's been through, being kind of like exploited by the people that he's working for, right? In fact, the guy, that side plot to me is always a side plot, right? There is a tenderness to it, right? We do feel for the guy with cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
But for me, at a certain point of the film, because I was like just thinking the film, is about Mongrel, which is like half-breed dog. At a certain point of the film, when I see him, and then I just feel like this guy, it is such a simple concept because it is so obvious that this guy is the Mongrel, right? But then after all he went through, then you realize, oh wow, this guy is really the dog that is there to just be loyal.
Yeah, it's almost like the Jet Li film Unleashed.
Yeah, exactly. Very different film, but totally same analogy. Yeah.
It's like master slave dynamic.
Yeah. And it's like, no matter how excellent you are as a caretaker, like what the boss keeps saying, this is my best guy, this is my best guy.
Yeah.
Right. He is a pro, in what he does. He is, at the end of the day, still a Mongrel, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when I felt that, wow, it really made me very sad, because there are a lot of oomph that the character. There are many people in the world that are just like him. To me, that's what the film is trying to show. Maybe not that much as a story, because the story in terms of structure and everything, it stretches, right?
Yeah.
But the profile of the character being presented cinematically, I felt that was what the person was, what William was trying to present on screen.
I remember why I don't buy the murder already. Because earlier in the film, if you recall, Ong had to not bury, right, but he had to bring the dead body of his fellow, there is this female...
Indra, right?
Yeah, Indri, right? Like, quote-unquote colleague. Yeah. So, she died and he had to bring her body into the forest, and near the end of the film, you see go into the forest and kneel down in front of her body and offered her body what she liked to eat, right? And he broke down.
Yep.
After what he went through with that, and to later go on and kill the disabled son, it just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. So, okay, I'm done with this rant.
Ivan, any more thoughts on Mongrel?
No.
Okay, cool. So we can move on to the next film, which is Viet and Nam.
Oh my god, I asked. Okay, this is
Viet and Nam is a film that me and Peng unfortunately have to miss out the last half an hour of the film.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, let me.
Oh gosh.
Okay. Wait, before we get to that, right? Because this is okay. I think Ivan, why don't first you introduce
Keep on imposing on you to
the film.
explain the story.
Wow. The film is tough to describe
It is tough to describe.
structurally it's something it's not linear for sure.
Yeah.
It's more circular and free association, if you may. But essentially, there are few storylines, let's just say. Yeah. The first of which is there's this pair of miners. One is called Viet and one is called Nam. And they are lovers lah. Yeah. And one of them wants to move overseas, but not by going on exchange, by a very dangerous path, which is in this film, which is basically trafficking through a shipping container. So one wants to go, but the other is kind of not so keen to go. And then before they go, some things need to be kind of resolved, but it's not told narratively like that. It's just this is just the second thread. The second story thread has to do with one of the two miners. His father died in the war, and the father has been revisiting the mother in her dreams, and also this father figure is also haunting him. And so they go on a journey to find this, to try and find the remains of the father who died during the war. And then there are a few, along with this narrative thread, there's this other character who is like the father's, like, can you say army mate?
Yeah, can.
Something like that lah. And he goes along, and we discover something about him as well towards the end. Is there another thread? Well, then there is this very interesting thread of psychics, of Vietnamese people using psychics to help them find the remains of, like, their kin whom they lost during the war. Is there another thread that I'm missing out? It's.
If I can add to what you just described, right? I think on a macro level, this is Viet and Nam. It's two films conjoined together, and the first part of the film is a simple, what you might call a social realist gay drama between these two male miners. And then the second part of the film is when the film moves into this kind of political, historical territory where it tries to examine what you might call intergenerational trauma caused by what happened during the Vietnam War. And would you agree with this characterization?
Yeah, I think it's more than that, because it's one of those, like, the composite parts are, it's greater than the
sum is greater than the parts now.
The sum is greater than its parts. And I think, like, why I say that, because I suspect that for him, for the filmmaker, what I think he is kind of really obsessed or concerned about in this film is that even among, like, the living, they are still informed and haunted and plagued by history, by ghosts, which is something like which through the form of the film, he really brings that across. Because it could really just be, a film about two guys in love, right? But it's more than that, and
Yeah.
and the way he does it is really remarkable for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's more than
Yeah.
just two guys in love, and the part where it's more than just two guys in love is the second part of the film. The first part of the film is very apolitical, would you say? It's a love story, right? And I think, and maybe we can get back to why me and John had to leave
Yeah.
halfway was so the film is about 2 hours long, right? We left after 1.5 hours because we felt like the film was going nowhere. Yeah, and I mean this is cinema sin and sacrilege, but we left this film to go and watch
Sorry.
Orang Ikan.
We had another screening, and unfortunately, the second film doesn't sound very respectfully. So, to all the listeners out there, we apologize.
Yeah, so I mean, so do bear with us as we talk about, at least for me and John, when we talk about this film, but it's because we've only seen, I would say, like three quarters of the film.
Yep.
But you know, I was just talking with John, right, as we were rushing over to watch The Great Orang Ikan, I think we would have been more than happy to stay till the end of the film if we felt that the film was going somewhere. And I think it was only until the super last part, right, where the more historical stuff started to surface, right, then it started to get interesting.
The medium came out. Then it was like, oh wow, the language is starting to really come alive here.
Yeah, and I was discussing it with someone else, like also a filmmaker, and I think we both agreed, like, why did this director choose to make two films essentially? Why not try to explore both the gay social relationship simultaneously with, you know, this political national trauma that the Vietnamese people still go through today, you know, living with the ghost of the Vietnam War. Yeah, instead of having like these two almost completely different films, right, stitch them together. And I think it's very intentional because even the intertitle Viet and Nam only came in after the first story ended, the first like gay relationship story ended.
I mean, firstly, you missed out on like one of the most moving last shots. Yeah, I mean,
Tell us what we missed out.
It's basically in the last scene or shot, you know, you see Vietnam inside what seems to be super dark. You know, we don't know what it is. We think we might still be in the coal mines, you know, but slowly the camera tracks out or zooms out. I can't remember, and you realize that actually they're in the container. Yeah, and then in the final shot, it's the container in the middle is like shipwrecked, right? The container is floating in the middle of an ocean, and it's a storm. It is an insane.
Wow.
And I believe it's one of the, because there was a news incident about this.
Yeah.
You know, open up the container and it's like all Vietnamese migrants, right, who are trying to escape. So I know for a fact that was one of the things that kind of inspired it. But in the last scene, it's just something else altogether. Yeah, I mean, for me, I like the free association, and that initially I was like, is this linear or not? And after a while, I'm like, okay, no, it's not. Yeah, because things are like jumping around.
Correct. Yep.
But not in a. I have to admit that at some bits, you know, you do like, wow, what's going on? You know, where are we? But I like the free association, and it kind of, although it has a distancing effect, which I have to acknowledge. You know, I'm not like super invested emotionally in everything, you know, all the way. But like, because of this free association effect, I am allowed and given space to think about things. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I couldn't thinking about was like, you know, when they you know, when I saw the mind the shaman, the psychic, you know, finally finding something, you know, and saying this is his remains, or I don't know what. And I just thought of the mines, you know, and where they were at. And there's this very, very like important scene. I think you all would have seen it, which is like after they made love, they were in the mines, right?
Yeah.
Making love, and then he was, I think, apologizing for hurting one or the other guy, and then after that, the guy says this like super outrageously direct thing where like, just as I was about to come, I saw my father, and I thought that really captured something that the director was trying to do, which was like I sense is this idea that when you look at someone, and I think he mentions this in the Q&A, yeah. When you look at someone like a lover, you don't just see your lover, you see like their parents, you see many other people. I think another so-called saying that is somewhat related to this is like, I always believe like, when you go to bed with your partner, actually there are not two people in bed, but there are six. Yeah, there are at least six. Really, yeah, it's like there's you, your partner, and then her parents or his or her parents, and my parents. So, but that's not the idea he was going for. I thought all that was really interesting, yeah, and because it's so outrageous, when the guy says that, you're just like, wow, that's really like out there, right? But I suspect that might be what he was trying to do. I'm not sure really, yeah. But for me, yeah, it's a risk, right? That
Yeah.
the filmmaker has to take. You want to allow people to the space to connect the dots. You also risk distancing them.
Yeah.
It's a risk, yeah. But for him, yeah. And it's like, for me, it's like when the film ended, I mean, obviously I was very moved by the last scene. But when I was watching it, I was also struggling at some points, because it's like at some points it's so distant that I feel like some of the ideas were like flying by me, But I have to say, like, the day after, the next day, I was thinking about the film. Yeah,
What were you thinking about?
I was just thinking about this whole, I don't want to call it like a cycle, like how people die, and then when you die, you go back to the soil, and then there's this mind, because it's a mind, there's this cyclical thing that's going on, in the same way trauma is kind of like also, going in a circulation, right? Because I don't know a whole lot about the Vietnam War, but clearly, right, there was a lot of trauma inflicted, on both sides, the North and the South, and how does this kind of like trauma, inform, and how does it like sit inside people's bodies? I was just thinking about those things, yeah, after the film, days after that. And it's the same kind of like, it's the same experience I had with April, not to jump forward. It's a film that, wow, it's so difficult to watch, and I was watching it for other reasons, but I just couldn't stop thinking about the film, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of like acknowledge that, actually, even though April makes me very uncomfortable, I actually like the film, yeah, because it's doing something, it's affecting me in a way that I feel is new in cinema. Like, I haven't been affected like that. Yeah.
You know what you just described about Viet and Nam, like how the film made you think about the interconnectedness and the cyclicality of like traumatic historical events.
Yeah.
I think a Vietnamese film that did it really well, which I love, was last year's Inside the Yellow Cocoon Shell. I think that film did what you just described like brilliantly. And that film, you could also characterize it as a somewhat slow. But for me, right, the way it was staged, like the mise en scène, it was so engaging. And his vision was very clear. Whereas for me, like watching Viet and Nam, I think a lot of my frustration was due to me not grasping like what is this director is trying to do. Initially, right, for the first 1 hour, I thought was just okay, two gay lovers, right? And it's very boring to watch, but sure, at least it's clear. Then suddenly there was all the extra things, and I was thinking like, where is he taking this film to? Yeah, and why he seemed to have two intentions, and I wondered why did he want to structure the film like that? Yeah. Whereas Yellow Cocoon Shell, it's just one broad narrative. Everything is cohesive.
Linear.
And yeah, everything is linear. And the vision is very clear from start to end. The directing, the mise en scène, everything is so well put together.
It's easier to follow lah. I mean, Inside Cocoon is just and super impressive. I really love the Yellow Cocoon Shell also. I thought before entering the cinema, I thought I kind of would know what the film is going to be like, but wow, it really exceeded my expectations. So I really enjoyed that. I guess another thing that made me that I was thinking about, days after Vietnam was that I just felt that it managed to become epic, and big, yeah. But without historically epic, without the need for like guns, wars, the obvious stuff. Yeah, I think that's what I perhaps maybe can appreciate more after the screening is that it manages to be very epic, yet in a very intimate scale. Even
Right.
like and like there are just images that I just cannot forget. Even the simple image of a bomb that has been buried underground for so long, and then they are trying to dig for the father's ruins, and then they just hit the bomb. That image just strikes me so hard. I don't even understand why. I've seen the image before, and it's being used in other films, but somehow he manages to kind of like avoid the very obvious, in a very that it works, and at the end of the day, it kind of works for me, and I appreciate the risk taking. It's like everything is a bit like going to fail, going to
Right.
not work already. For me, it's like, and I really appreciate, I like things that are like on the verge of failing, not to say I was hoping, I want this to be a shit film, but it's like, you're like, oh my god, like, what's going on? Oh my gosh, actually it works, like in my head, it works. Like, or like after that, I cannot stop thinking about it. It works, or even the image of like it was such a huge risk, right? I remember the first time he was talking about people getting smuggled through the plastic inside the plastic bags. I mean, it's one of the first things they talk about, right? The plastic bag, it's hard to breathe. And then I remember the next time you see, it's like you see it from his point of view, and you don't even know what's going on. Like, it's so small, and it's like, I was like, is this a funeral, or is this like some praying ceremony? And then only much later in the film, I don't know if you saw it, you see the close-up from the top view of what was going on there, which is an absolutely beautiful shot of like, I mean, it's horrifying that people need to be, will go through these situations to be smuggled, but it's like, wow, there's something really powerful, and he avoids the obvious, like he just keeps doing that, and maybe I guess I never really thought about it, but now I'm talking about it, maybe that's why I kind of appreciated it more, But it's definitely not one of the films where like when he ended, I'm like, my gosh, I love it, kind of.
Yeah, I think what you said about it looks like it's going to fail anytime, but it kind of pulls itself back, kind of perfectly describes the film, because I think there were some scenes where I watched as well. Then I'm like, is this scene like failing? Especially when they're in the mine, and I think the staging just didn't quite intrigue me, when they were kind of like talking, and I was like, this is kind of flat, man.
Yeah.
But I guess the mine is fascinating, right? And after that, there's a scene where there's singing. I think, there's some singing going on in this this veiled bed as well. That was like, I kind of seen this before as well. So I think there's a lot of that. And then once in a while, there's an intriguing image in the mind. Like, and I kind of get, the juxtaposition of different elements that, you can put together to create something that cinematically enchant people. But for me, it's really a thin line that sometimes can sip into contrivance as well. So like, for example, the part where you talk about the after they just had and then in the mine, and he's describing about the when he closes his eyes, when he climax, he can see his father, right? That part I saw the contrivance part of it more rather than being struck by it. Another similar instance is when he was digging the ear for the lover. And there was, and you know, Asian films really like to have ear digging scenes, whether is it tender moments between parent and child or between lovers, right? If you watch a movie like Memories of Murder, right? What is his name? The Song Kang Ho, the wife also helped him dig ear. And then at that very moment, right? Maybe this is a thing in Vietnam. I'm not quite sure. Maybe they do have barber shops.
Yes, they do. I go before.
But car mechanic shops together with the barber shop, just like in the film, no? You remember or not? It's like the guy is fixing a tire and then there's a barber shop in operation right beside it. Is that a thing? If that's a thing, then
I've never seen that particular configuration, but I know that there are a lot of these like Chapalang makeshift barber shop that they just set up anywhere where there's space, anywhere where people would rent it to them.
Yeah. And then he starts digging his ear, and right in the background, the sparks of the mechanic work just kind of like just nice juxtaposed with the ear. Then I was like, in my mind, it's like, come on, man. So
Great Steve.
It is interesting.
Like it made my jaw dropped. Yeah, I was like, it's really something. I didn't mind it so much, but I can see why it can be. I wasn't concerned about the reality of it. I mean, it's like,
but
already cut it very, very short. Some filmmakers might just milk it.
But it's interesting you talk about the ghosts of the past and all that, right? There's one moment, right, where he was in the mine and then they were hearing, it's like a television broadcast, right? Talking about missing soldiers or something.
Yeah. Quite early in the film,
Wow, that part, right? Okay, that part really kind of, it's just a very light background detail, right? That I think serves the narrative as well. But watching that broadcast, right, even just in a corner of that screen, right? Wow, I momentarily I got some chills because I think it's just for me seeing I have this like fear of people going missing or people like years, right? That imagery and hearing that broadcast of names, right? That just kind of scared me a little bit.
Yeah, it is a powerful image.
Yeah. But I think we should watch Viet and Nam again because of what you described about the ending image. And again, apologies we didn't make it to the end of the film.
There are some really amazing images towards the end. So I think it's worth completing.
Yeah. Sorry to the filmmaker. We will catch it again soon. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, with that.
So next film is Crocodile Tears. Am I the only one that watched it?
I saw it.
Oh, you saw it? Oh, nice. Great.
Okay, I'll leave it to both of you to speak
please
about.
Don't ask me to summarize. You can summarize.
Okay, let me do it now. I think if I were to describe this film, it's basically about the relationship between a possessive mom and like her relationship with her adolescent son. And so basically like she's a single mom who raised her son by herself, and they live on the crocodile farm where after her late husband passed away, so she's like the main like proprietor and her son helps her with whether it's with the box office or with cleaning the crocodile, I don't know what you call it, stable, or I don't know what they call it, where they live. And so, I mean, to call her possessive is an understatement because the inciting incident, you could say, is when the son meets a girl and, they develop a crush. And when the mom meets her son's new girlfriend, she becomes very threatened by her presence and by the potential, the departure of her son, right? Like her son might slip away because he has found another female companion, whereas previously his entire universe, his entire like female universe was just his mother. And to add, right, they are so close that they sleep on the same bed. Mother and son sleep on the same bed, even though the son is probably like 15 years old. Yeah,
Much older.
older. Oh my god, that's even worse. So it's a unhealthily close relationship between a possessive mom and her mature son, but maybe still
Yes.
still not so still not so mature. I think I enjoyed the film, but there is something a bit of a B movie vibe to it, even though it is quite well done. Yeah, I don't know how you feel, Ivan.
This film is a very interesting case study for me, and I've been
Mm,
trying to like figure out myself. It's a film where I find like the script is very coherent. I know what it's
mm,
trying to do. I enjoyed the performance. The location is, it's mostly set in this crocodile farm. It's unique. It's interesting.
yeah,
Everything seems to work, but this film just did not stay with me.
yeah,
It's just
yeah. I
very
think
funny. I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand why. Like it's like it's the reverse of say. I mean, not to say that the film is not as good or whatsoever, but it's just like it just doesn't like Viet and Nam or
Right, right,
April. It
right.
was
Yep.
churning in my head,
yeah,
Like, but this one's like almost as soon as it ended, I was like, hey, yeah,
yeah.
it's very interesting. I don't know why.
I can 100% relate to what you said. Yeah, I think the ingredients of the film are so cinematic and it has the potential to be something more than what we saw. And
Mm,
if I were to like try to speculate, right, to try to pinpoint why, I think it's because there is nothing really surprising about the film.
mm,
I think everything right was done to a level where it's done to a competent level. I think the performances were great. At most, it was decent, right? But I really enjoyed what the mom did. But I think other than that, everything else is just pretty expected, pretty predictable even. And there was no spark, right? There was no like cinematic
yeah,
spark that you had with like Viet and Nam, right? Even in Viet and Nam, like you mentioned, you and John both mentioned some shots that were like wow, give you the wow. But even in Happyend, there were some like sequences that were great. But in Crocodile Tears, there was nothing like that. Yeah.
yeah. I did feel the ending was a bit. It was missing something, like just on the script level, like. And correct me if I'm wrong, like the mother like lets him go, right? And then jumps. Does she let him go? I know she jumps into the pit, but I don't know if the mom like just decides to let him go.
I think the mom recognized that she is no longer able to contain
Mm.
her son, and as a recognition of her powerlessness, she decides that the only alternative is to quote unquote join her late husband.
Yeah, I have a bit of I think that really cost the film a bit for me. It hurt the film.
Why?
It's a bit fake for me. It's a bit vague. I'm not sure why, like how she got there. And I think she kind
Mm,
of got there quite fast, even though she
mm,
was like ready to like murder her.
mm,
I think that for me did cost my film, and I was like analyzing already. So that also shows me something, right? Like that actually
mm.
I was there, and then I was really analyzing, and then the next image was like of the two quite crocodile. I'm not sure. Yeah, it just didn't do it for me. Like it didn't open. I'm thinking it should open up something for me, right?
Yeah.
Like make me question. Or but I was like, oh, okay, lor. It's like it's like that. Yeah, it's like yeah, it wasn't enough for me, lah. If you
Yeah.
ask me about
I
the yeah.
I honestly I like the ending. But I also kind of agree with you. And I think the letdown is due to the climax. Which
Mm,
for me, I think it wasn't properly, maybe proper is not the word, but it wasn't constructed to its maximum potential. I think
mm,
if the climax had been, especially when
mm.
the mom dragged the girlfriend to feed her to the crocodile, that whole sequence, right? If it has been somehow better constructed, especially when the son tried to save the girlfriend and then there was a tussle, I think if that whole sequence is better done, right,
Yeah,
the film would leave us with a more impactful impression.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that reminds me of something which was also something I found a bit bizarre. Was that, you know, she's like set out to be, she being the mother was set out to be this very like controlling,
Mm-mm.
like, you know, she clearly has like a lot up in her head,
Mm.
and you just don't know what she would do.
Yeah.
And initially she kind of like, when she finds out that the son is seeing this girl,
Yeah.
she expresses her disagreement, you know,
Yeah.
threatens and all that. And then like suddenly her will like kind of relaxed, and she lets him bring her to the farm, you know, like with almost like, it seems like there's no ulterior motive, there's no.
But she does have an ulterior motive.
Yeah, but it's
She's already planning to kill her. That's why
but,
she allowed the girlfriend to
yeah, but even so,
join
it's,
the household.
I wasn't sure about that. Yeah, almost for me it's like the will just kind of like weakened for me or something. It didn't sit well with me. I was puzzled, but I mean I went with it lah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I was not sure about her intentions there. Yeah, it's a very interesting case study. Yeah, I do. It has been rolling around in my head, but just trying to figure out for myself as a learning
Yeah.
opportunity. Why is it that it's not quite? Yeah, and
Do
there
you
was
think?
sorry,
No, you finish your point first.
and there was this little thread which I thought
Mm.
was not fully fleshed out, or maybe it was, but it got cut out. Which is that. So what exactly happened to the husband? Not that I need to know, but you know, it was like, for me it was an opportunity for us to kind of like,
Right.
you know, it's like a Rosemary's Baby opportunity. It's like,
Yeah.
she is she really like losing her marbles, or is it like, you know, it's the hormones, or is it the her paranoia, you know, is this thing that she's so worried about, is it real, you know, like,
Mm.
you know, in Rosemary's Baby, Polanski plays it so well. It's like in one scene you're like, she's definitely paranoid, and then the next scene you're like, oh gosh, no, maybe she's not paranoid, maybe it's real. And the next scene you're like, it's paranoia. You know, it's really like, it keeps you on edge, you know, on the edge of your seat, because
Yeah. Yeah.
you know he's like suggesting all these possibilities,
Yeah.
and only at the very end he confirms, and of course it's a totally different film. But I was just thinking, what an interesting
Mm.
thread, you know, like okay, like some people say that you know, she pushed him in. Was he mad?
Mm.
Was she mad? I don't know. Like there was a lot of these
Yeah.
things I thought was a bit. I don't know. Like I really don't know, because apparently the script went through quite a lot. Yeah,
Right.
of
Right.
revision. So I really don't know what happened. But you know, he's a good writer, and I appreciated the humor a lot. He's really funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
I like all the relationship stuff between him and the girlfriend.
correct,
Right. I think those are
correct.
great.
Yeah, he's definitely a strong writer, and he can direct, right? Like
Mm.
all those scenes, the humor is actually quite tough, like to direct. I was thinking to myself like, well, this guy is quite good, and he doesn't then do it once, he does it a few times. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a mystery. Yeah, I don't really understand. Yeah.
Do you think this film is torn between two identities, which is, I feel like this film, right, if it had been a bit more brazen and really taken that B movie aesthetic, you might call it that. Not really in a negative way, but in a more like okay, I this is clearly what I am. I'm not ashamed about it. I'm going to go all out. You know, like how some crazy Japanese films are, and it's torn between that identity and also the identity of trying to be a quote unquote, art house drama that is trying to mine these relationships. I don't know, like I just feel this tension sometimes. And
Mm,
as a result, there are moments where, if he had go more all in, right, wow, it would have been a hell of a ride to watch. It would have been a lot more fun.
mm,
But then when it should have gone in that direction, it pulls itself back and try to be restrained, and try to have this veneer of this polished drama, if I may put it that way. Yeah. Like, do you agree with this like characterization, or you don't feel it?
I mean, I'm really not sure, right? I mean, on hindsight, we can always say a lot of things, ma.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, I did not really see the so-called B movie sort of possibility. So I cannot like chime in on that. Yeah, is it supposed to be a very polished drama? I mean, it's pretty polished, but for me, if drama is the thing that it was supposed to focus on, then it also kind of
Yeah.
delivered slightly,
Yeah.
especially in the ending. I mean, for me, it's so much about the ending, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can forgive a lot of things if the ending is solid and unique, right? And has something unique to say or express. That for me is what I look for in a story.
Yeah. You know, I don't know why, but I was just thinking of Audition, Takeshi Miike's Audition. It could have gone in that kind of tone, man. Like, and it would have been a crazy fun film. Yeah, and maybe I would like love it a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh well.
Film is a beast. Yeah, no one really understands.
Yeah,
All right.
that's the interesting thing. On a white page, it really can go anywhere.
Yeah.
All right, next film. Let's talk about Time to Be
Time
Strong,
to be strong.
which is a film that Jonathan and I, yeah, sure.
Yeah, we watched this, and I will do the honors of introducing the basic plot of the film. This film is about 3 K-pop singers, right? 2 of them in the same girl band, and then their high school friend who is in a boy band. Yeah, and 3 of them are going on this supposed delayed high school trip because they spend the tail end of their high school years being trainees in a K-pop group, in their respective K-pop groups. Thing is, they never quite made it in their K-pop career, and their careers went nowhere. One of them is in debt. The other 2 kind of dealt a lot with very common pop star problems, like, some mental illnesses or depression, and also
due to exploitation.
Correct. Dealing with one of their friends committing suicide as well. So these are the problems that, while they are trying to enjoy their time on this little quaint, enjoyable trip in Busan. Not Busan, Jeju Island, right? These issues will come back to kind of haunt them, right? They will get triggered by these little things. So I think on its veneer, by its veneer, it's a very kind of easy to digest, chill comedy that is done in the typical 3-act structure manner, right? But it's also it falls under this very interesting category of films in Korean cinema, right? Because it's obviously not your big blockbuster release. This is not your films where you have your main stars. It's not Train to Busan. It's not one of those political thrillers or like disaster movies, right? It falls under this category of like accessible indie cinema, because it's not exactly it's not like a Hong Sang-soo film as well, which is like more far left, and it falls right in the middle. Like, it's indie release, probably plays in limited release, but it's completely accessible as well. I don't want to say it's like a Noah Baumbach film, but I would say it is probably as accessible, if not more accessible than an indie film like that. So yeah, I think it's a film that we both enjoyed very much. And it's quite interesting. We watched it right after watching Mongrel as well. So it was really a completely different viewing experience. Yeah, so I think maybe I can start off. I really enjoyed this film. It does, structure-wise, it doesn't surprise you in any way. But at the same time, it doesn't have to as well. The thing about road trip movies is that sometimes if you are very sold into the characters, they can sort of take the liberty to do things that really just can be extended for periods of time
Yeah.
and you can still feel very comfortable with that. So, for example, in this instance, because they have no money, they have to go and do part-time job by pruning tangerines.
Plucking tangerines.
Plucking tangerines, right? And it's cut in such a casual way. It's filmed in such a casual way as well that you just feel like, wow, it's quite therapeutic just watching this, right? You can just watch them go around the island, hanging out.
Yeah.
The dialogue is good as well. I think
Yeah.
Korean screenwriters they developed a system enough that they know how to write, and for a lack of better comparison, in a very Hollywood way where they can write accessible exchanges, but it's both lifelike while able to tackle your themes as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very underrated skill. It's a skill that perhaps a lot of screenwriters locally or maybe perhaps the region, we should try to improve in that as an industry. I'm talking as an industry, because the more you have writers being able to write like that, taking things that are simple and make it accessible, I think it's for the better, whether is it in TV or is it in commercial cinema. So and for me, I'm a sucker for films that is set where the characters are musicians. These characters are K-pop musicians. When I read the synopsis in the booklet, right, I was just like, I'm going to watch this. It doesn't matter if is it good or is it bad. Just that meta element, and I know 100% is going to touch on like all these issues of exploitation and everything. But I was just pleased with what I expected and what I got out of it. The music is terrible. The music that you watch Inside Llewellyn Davies, right? And they present Oscar Isaac as a mediocre artist in the Bob Dylan folk movement. But the song is legit good, It's a legit good mediocre song. And here, right, they composed this mediocre K-pop song, right? And you can hear why they didn't go anywhere, because it's terrible. Yeah, so it's like, wow, they really went full realistic. It's not like something you would even go out to Spotify to listen. You're like, this really just terrible. So it's quite interesting, creative approach they did there. They really went with it sounds like it's created by AI. So that was an interesting touch. But overall, very enjoyable film.
Yeah, I think I just echo what you just said. And maybe just to give a bit of a background context, I was reading out on this film, and apparently this film was funded by the National Human Rights Commission in Korea. So this commission approached this director, I think this is her second feature, to make a film about human rights. And I think she proposed the idea of, why not shed some light on the human rights of K-pop idol singers? Because I think as you all know, there is a lot of not just like labor exploitation, but like sexual exploitation that goes on in the K-pop industry. And but I think what I like about this film was it's not very polemical, like in the same way that Happyend isn't polemical. The way they talk about these issues is just very, very chill. You might describe it that way, right? Yeah, it's like, they're just hanging out, and the struggles that they deal with just naturally surface in their conversation. Yeah, and the way the dialogue and the performance were executed, it just feels like, as what John you just described just now, right? Like their dialogue just very competently just illustrated the themes of the film.
Yeah, it's a film that actually gives quite little thought to its visual style and visual grammar as well. Yeah, it's kind of borderline shot in a MTV TVC style. It's just kind of not as how to say, crude as that but it just like, where the characters go, will follow them.
Yeah, I would say that the visual style is very like unobtrusive. It's very simple and no pretense or nothing flowery, right? It's just trying to capture, to record the performance.
Accessible.
Yeah. Ivan, you saw this film?
No leh. Time to be strong, right?
Time to be strong. Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, it's a chill out movie lah. Yeah. Quite surprised actually it's in the feature competition. But glad to see it within the selection.
Yeah, I think maybe because the director is female. I think and it's a decent film, so they
Yeah.
put her in competition.
Right. I do think it deserves a spot there.
In fact, I was rooting for this film to win like best ensemble performance.
Yeah.
Like it went to another film.
Right.
Actually, to be honest, I don't know what else to talk about for this film.
Yeah, no worries. We can just go to the next one already.
Yeah, The Great
Yeah.
Phuket.
I didn't watch it.
John, do you see it?
No, I didn't see this as well.
Only I watched.
Yeah. Maybe you can just kind of speak about it briefly.
Yeah.
This and Age of Night.
Age of Night. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at these two films, right? And the notes say The Great Phuket won Best Performance and Special Mention for Screenplay.
Me.
I feel like Age of Night should have gotten both those awards. Okay, so yeah, what Great Phuket is not a Thai film. It's not set in Phuket, but it's actually a Chinese film.
Yeah.
Made by a Chinese.
Actually, I didn't know it until just now when I was finding the director's name.
I think it's a debut film by this Chinese director, and the Great Phuket is this you might call it like a slumish kind of enclave somewhere in, I'm not sure the city, but it's basically a very rundown area, and there's a lot of construction in that area, and all the big real estate firms are coming in and they purchase like plots and plots of land, trying to redevelop it into something more modern. I think it's set against the backdrop of like modernizing China. As we all know, I think China went through like a construction boom in the past 10, 20 years, and this little town or village is just caught up in that boom. So the main characters are just two high school or middle high school friends, and it's just their story, and the main character is very, very mischievous, and I think he's the guy that won best performance, I assume. I think his performance was okay lah. But what I really liked was, wow, I think it also has this very naturalistic vibe that Time to Be Strong has, which is you don't feel like you're watching something constructed. You feel like you're watching something that happened for real, and the camera just happened to be there. Yeah, I mean maybe that's why he won the best performance. But he was very good in that film.
Will you say that this feature that comes out of China, right, is has the same qualities as what a film earlier released this year, Black Dog, has?
It's so different.
Very different.
Black Dog, right? I love Black Dog, but on some level, right, you know that Black Dog is a film constructed.
Right. Yep.
There is a very constructed film.
Yeah.
And it's not just constructed, but it references a lot of other films.
It's calculated.
In a way,
it's calculated.
Yeah. In a way, it's a film that is made from other films.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this film is very humble. It's very unassuming in its ambition. Yeah. And I think that is why I enjoyed it so much. And I think the main thread of this film is just this boy who is trying to find his way around this world where he has to deal with his parents and his mom, also a very controlling mom, and he's rebelling against that. At the same time, he has a crush on this girl, and it's just about their blossoming relationship. And at the same time, he used to be very good friends with this other guy, but because he met this girl, and he also met another group of like older friends who are like maybe a few levels above him, and his friendship with this original boy got strained. And it's just this very simple, like almost like coming of age story.
Right.
Yeah. And then I think that the part where I really liked was you also get to spend some time with the parents, and you can see how the parents deal with the economic climate that they are living in. Like they are, like the mom, for example, she's an employee and struggling to make a living. She's also very aware that at any time she might get laid off soon because all her surroundings are just being demolished, and so maybe the place where she works might also be torn down.
Yep.
And she meets this friend who has started her own business, and she got very inspired. She's like, hey, maybe I should also start my own business, and then we can make more money. I can take my fate more into control. And you follow this mom and this father, trying to find a new house where they can set up shop. And there's also this other guy who's trying to chase the mom. So it's just a very well constructed drama, and I really have nothing bad to say about this film. Yeah, it's a good
I think from what you described, like it really does has all the simple elements that make.
Yes. And this film, right, just to move on to talk about Edge of Night, right? The tone and approach is very different for Edge of Night. So Edge of Night is a Turkish film. I think it's a debut film. It's basically about these two estranged brothers, and it's set in this army. It's not set in the army, but the two brothers, they both work in the army, and the elder brother is a lieutenant in the Turkish army, and I think the younger brother is also a few ranks below. So right from the outset of the film, the two brothers are already not very close, and their personalities cannot be more different. So the elder brother is very focused, disciplined person. You can see in his outfit, in his hair, he's very neat, and he, if I'm not wrong, he acted in some of Nuri Bilge Ceylan's film. Yeah, and the younger brother is almost the complete opposite in personality. Very brash. He a lot of facial hair. So the whole premise of the film, right, is the younger brother got arrested, and for some reason that I can reveal later, the elder lieutenant brother has been tasked by his superiors to escort his younger brother to this facility far away. And the way they describe this facility, right, is as if it's like Guantanamo Bay, where like all the badasses get shipped there to be severely interrogated. The film didn't really reveal what the younger brother did, but it's something very serious. And as you watch the film, there are clues, and the clues are, so both the father of both of these two brothers, right, is also in the army. So basically, it's a military family. Their whole lineage is they all work in the army, and it's been strongly hinted that the elder brother might have done a crime, maybe like implicated the father, because the father got either executed or imprisoned for a crime that he might not have committed, and it was suggested that the elder brother had a part to play in it. So why I like this film? I think when you watch the film, right, the directing is just very clear. I mean, we talk about clear direction, right? I think this film really demonstrated that.
Yep.
And when I say clear direction and strong direction, it doesn't mean a static take throughout the entire film. This film is really guided by performance and really guided by how do I set up my camera work in such a way where it tells the story clearly and convey the emotions in the most like potent manner. And something that I was also thinking was, because I watched this Turkish film, which is a debut film, and then you watch all the other Southeast Asian films, and the difference cannot be more stark in a sense that for some reason, I think Southeast Asian films, especially the more art house ones, they tend to avoid drama. They tend to like de-dramatize, whether it's in the script or in the camera work. But this film, right, the premise is already so dramatic. You have an elder brother escorting a younger brother to this like interrogation facility. But at the same time, right, the dialogue is very minimal, and the performance is very restrained. It's rarely do the two brothers like erupt in argument. But when they argue, right, they also don't argue a lot. There is a lot of, the dialogue is very minimal, but it's very rich. Yeah,
it's strong as the subtext.
Yeah, so Ivan, just now you were saying you were trying to analyze like why Crocodile Tears didn't really work for you. I was trying to analyze why this film works so well, despite the fact that it has a lot of the elements that Southeast Asian films want to have. Like there is a lot of quote unquote restrained performance in Southeast Asian films that aspire at like subtlety or nuance, and in a lot of cases doesn't achieve it. But in the case of Edge of Night, it works. Yeah, I'm also trying to study why it's so good. Yeah,
a very good friend of mine whose opinion I respect a lot told me it's one of the best films. Yeah, and I missed it. So yeah, it's like the people who love it really love it. Yeah, and it doesn't seem like a very like, I don't know, like I heard a lot of praises for the cinematography actually.
Mm.
I was
Yeah.
told it was really well done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's well done in the sense that the camera move when it's supposed to move, It's just like there is no better way to move the camera for that particular scene. That's why it's so good. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can't wait to watch it. Yeah, hopefully we have a way.
Yeah. But at the same time, right, the thing is this is a very well made film. Because I don't want to set your expectation too high, right? But at the same time, it's
By the book.
it's not a revelatory film, It's not like you watch this film, right, and then you feel like I have just experienced a different level in cinema.
Right.
Yeah. It's a good movie. It's like American movies like, what's that film? The Big Short. Have you seen that? I don't know if you've seen The Big Short. Is it The Big Short? Margin Call. Have you seen Margin Call?
I haven't seen Margin Call.
No. If you watch Margin Call, right, it's just a fantastic script directed damn well by J.C. Chandor. Yeah, he's just a super competent filmmaker, and it's that quality of filmmaking that I'm referring to. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so Ivan, maybe you can talk to us about your experience watching April.
Yeah, I really like April. The story is very simple actually. It's about this gynae who is pro-abortion and helps women in the village that she lives in with abortion lah. Yeah. And for some reason which I don't fully understand, like abortion seems to be frowned upon. Not even frowned upon. It feels wrong or dangerous, or you just have a strong sense that one shouldn't be doing that lah. Yeah. And what's really interesting about this film is that there is a linear story and somewhat character study of this woman. And you get a sense that she maybe had gone through some kind of trauma, also relating to pregnancy and childbirth, or that maybe she is pregnant now. But it's like there's a very strong and linear character study, but it is kind of like interrupted by these so-called sections of, sometimes it's just nature, landscape, but often there's this figure. It's like a monstrous figure, which actually appears at the start of the film, then it just keeps coming back. And it's never explained. You don't really know why it's there. Sometimes, even though initially it kind of exists on like in a world that is different from the world of this woman. But then in some scenes this figure appears in the house. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. And
is it like a psychological thing? Is it part of her imagination?
Yeah, you can read it as such, but it just defies any like you cannot say it or that. Yeah. And actually just a few days ago I was watching a Q&A with her. She also doesn't really want to explain. And I think it's good that she doesn't explain much. Yeah. Because I think that is why that is what makes it so powerful for me. Because after watching the film, I mean, the film is tough to watch. Yeah, you have some very graphic like operation/medical scenes. Yeah, it's really something that you just kind of like have to. Some bits I just have to look away. It's not memorable because of those scenes. It's memorable because of those shots or those scenes that kind of like interrupt, or you could think of it as book ending, which really stays with me. It's very interesting. If it was an experiment, then I think it really paid off for her. And again, it's like very risky stuff. And it also has like one of the perhaps the best image/scene. It's a single shot of a thunderstorm. It is the best thunderstorm I've seen in cinema. Really, like, I think maybe if there's anyone that has shot something better, it's probably Tarkovsky or Kurosawa. But this thunderstorm, and also because of how it sits in the film. It comes after a very, very important scene. So like, oh my gosh, I was just so taken in by that single shot. I mean, it's a long ass take. And the thing about this film, which I think a lot of the people who were watching, like some of us were talking about it, like everyone was very puzzled by the way the camera was floating, because everything is framed very, very precisely,
Yeah.
but it's almost never locked off. Yeah.
Mm.
It's always kind of like floating, and everyone was like discussing why she did that. And I mean, no one came to a conclusion lah, but something that I was talking with some of the people who were watching was like, oh, then the alternative is to lock it off, like really static. But when we kind of imagine that approach, then we kind of felt like, well, actually the floating camera was more interesting.
Yeah.
It's something. I didn't see her first film beginning, but a lot of people really love it. But for me, her lineage is like Carlos Regadas. Yeah, that was definitely one guy, a filmmaker that I thought of when I was watching April. But still,
Really?
she's
Okay.
she's doing her own thing. Yeah, it's just like I just thought of it. Yeah.
Right. Because from watching the trailer, it can't be more different from Regada's film.
But it is. I think it's her own thing, lah. Especially this
Right.
film. Yeah, I mean, it has all the rigor. They are also concerned with like very big questions. About life, very existential, very big. And the characters are complex. They are dark.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't seen April, but even as a filmmaker, right, like I to even dare to think about making a film about abortion is so scary, because you are living under the shadow of this great film called 4 Months, 3 Weeks, and 2 Days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's a completely different thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious, right? How does April differentiate itself from Christian Mongju's film? And from some of the things that you describe, I can already feel the difference. But in terms of the story, right, like, did April say anything differently about abortion that 4 Months did not?
Well, I think that 4 Months is I mean, it's interesting you point out the comparison, because certainly I was thinking of that film also.
Yeah.
Because they both have like a very tough to watch abortion scene.
Yeah.
But I think that 4 Months was more. I would say it's super narrative driven. Yeah, it's like a super well told story. And what I always remember about 4 Months is that it starts off being like, you think it's a story about the girl who is going to get the abortion.
Yeah.
Right. I remember it's the friend that is like not the brightest apple on the tree.
Yeah, you not slap.
Her friend is so exasperated, and so are you, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, there's that very famous, negotiation scene with the doctor and the two ladies. And then after that, it becomes, he does this really beautiful thing where suddenly the protagonist switches, or like the gaze of the camera is now on the friend. And we realize by the end of the film, actually this is really more about the friend. Yeah. So, like narratively it's like flawless, right? It's like quite interesting that way. But this one is not like that. It doesn't have that kind of narrative flourish in that sense, It's more like it's quite obsessive about this woman. And she screws up at the start of the film. Yeah, basically she delivers a baby, and the baby is like dead when it comes out. And basically the parents, or rather the baby's father, is like trying to like, is threatening to press charges, so on and so forth. But it's not, it's not like what happens then. Yeah, it's just something happens in the film. But I mean, this is one incident that kind of sends her in certain directions, but it's not so straightforward. Yeah, like say other films would lah. Yeah, and I think she's more interested, definitely, the character study. she really is trying to express what this woman is going through, or what is, what she might be going through, and what to make of in the middle, those things that are like book ending the so-called main narrative thread. I think it's for the individual to like decide for themselves. There's a certain freedom in that, which I think 4 months there's no freedom. This is it. This is how we are going. We are switching protection. And it's very clear. There's no freedom to kind of like figure out. And in a way, there's also a distancing effect.
Sure.
Like one with April. Like when I was watching it, at some bits I was like, what is this about? And as cliche as it sounds like, but once you just kind of like stop thinking so much and you just try and feel what the filmmaker might be doing rather than understanding, then I think the film starts to come like affect you more, I suppose. But certainly I couldn't stop thinking about those scenes, that were the so-called the non-narrative parts. They were quite something for me, which you don't get in 4 months. 4 months is almost super social realist. Great performance, great characters, clear storyline. So that I think is the difference for me.
John, anything to add?
I guess 4 months is ostensibly a thriller also, and that's why it does kind of engage the audience on this, like, the tension that one might get from a thriller film. It's just that sometimes it's subvert by giving you a much more nuanced character moment here and there.
I love the 4 months is one of the films. I think in cinema, like, that it's hard to find a parallel for that, the negotiation scene. I think the closest I can think of late that I saw is maybe, although they're very different films, is Evil Does Not Exist, which is that great scene, in when they are holding the town hall meeting. It's just like, it's such an amazing scene, like, it's so engaging, right? Like, but it's just a bunch of people talking to the glamping company. It's really amazing.
The amazing thing about both these films and their negotiation scenes, right, is that it feels like it's seemingly something that is in real life, right? But it's actually not. It's so quite orchestrated or like put together, right? That it takes a lot of editing, maybe on the script page, just to get to that piece.
Really great pieces of filmmaking. It's just really nice to be able to witness. But I know a lot of people have problems with 4 months also. It's another conversation, But this film, I think people also will have comments.
I hope Projector brings it in.
I don't think people will go and watch it. That for us, it is a filmmaker's film, like that. I have to.
Okay.
Like, fortunately, unfortunately, like, it's really a filmmaker's film. It's just one of those, like, you're just like, wow, how did they even get that shot? Things like that. Like, it's really great. In that aspect.
Not one for the family. Okay.
But funny enough, 4 months. I was just looking at 4 months, and it's a box office hit. Apparently, the budget was 600k euros. Box office was 9.8 million.
Wow.
It's a minor hit.
I mean, it's not hard to follow the story.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Okay, moving on to the last competition film, The Adamant Girl, which
Did anyone of us watch this?
I didn't.
I didn't as well. So
Okay. But it won Ensemble Award, I think. Right. But I guess we can talk about it.
So off to the next section.
Sorry, director of Adamant Girl.
Sorry, PS, no trudge.
we're gonna move on to the next section where we'll talk about the remaining Southeast Asian films.